Turn to the book of 1 Thessalonians. As you turn there, Bible quiz, who wrote the book of 1 Thessalonians? Any bold soul can unmute and tell us? You think it's an easy question. I'm trying to trick you.
God.
It's Paul's first letter, right?
Again, thank you for that, Sarah. So there would be people who have questions about the date of Galatians. I'm an early date for Galatians type of guy, but even then, yes, it's understood to be 1 Thessalonians, Paul's first letter. Who wrote it, Sarah?
Paul.
Chapter 1, verse 1. Paul.
Silvanus and Timothy.
This is a Silvanus, a variant of Silas. Paul, Silas, and Timothy. Why does that matter? Look at the pronouns in chapter 1. Paul, Silas, and Timothy, the church of God at Thessalonica. Verse 2, we. Verse 3 starts with we. Verse 4, for we know. Verse 5, because our. Are you seeing this? Verse number, let's follow on. Look at chapter 2. You know, brothers and sisters, adelphoi, that term for church, Luke uses often also. You know, brothers and sisters, that our visit to you. Who wrote the book of 1 Thessalonians? The pronouns tell us the three of them, Paul, Silas, and Timothy. Follow it down for just a second. Let's keep going. Chapter 2, verse 2, we had previously suffered. Chapter 2, verse 3, for the appeal we make does not spring. Chapter 2, verse 4, on the contrary, we speak as those approved by God and trust with the gospel. We are not trying to please people, but God who tests our hearts. For you know, we never used flattery, verse 5, nor did we put on a mask to cover up greed. God is our witness. Why does this matter? Chapter 2, verse 6, we were not lacking for praise from people, nor from you or anyone else, even though as apostles of Christ, we could have asserted our authority. Really? Paul and Silas are never referred to in the New Testament with the term elder, overseer, shepherd. A little footnote from 20 minutes ago. Paul and Silas and Timothy are all referred to themselves as sent ones, as apostles of Christ. We could have asserted our authority. Really? Acts chapter, we've bumped across this a couple times over our this is our fourth session together, isn't it? We bumped across this in Acts chapter 14, verse 4, Acts chapter 14, verse 14, Paul and Barnabas, the apostles, when they heard this, they tore their clothes. Paul and Barnabas as apostles. Well, Barnabas was early. He could have been a witness to the resurrection. He might have been one of the 1 Corinthians 15, 500. He's early in the church. Paul, of course, is Galatians 1, untimely born. So he also was a witness, Acts chapter 9, to the resurrected Christ at his conversion. So we'll count them as apostles, as sent ones. Acts chapter 1 tells us, Peter says very clearly, if we're going to replace Judas, it needs to be someone who's been a witness from the beginning, even the baptism of John, to all the ministry of Jesus, and was a witness also to his resurrection, Acts chapter 1, so that they can bear witness with us, so that they can preach the gospel. To be an eyewitness of the death, burial, resurrection. That's the qualification Peter gives to apostles in Acts chapter 1. In another place, later on, Paul even says, did I not see Christ? He says that. He claims his own eyewitness to the resurrection as a qualifier for his apostleship. So it's right that we understand the 12. And interestingly, it is Luke who most often refers to them as the 12 in his gospel. But carried over in the book of Acts, Barnabas might have been a witness to the resurrection. Paul was in his own testimony. But Silas and Timothy, we don't know about Silas. He came out of Jerusalem, Acts chapter 15. Maybe he was out there earlier. Who knows? But Timothy so very clearly had never been to Jerusalem. He hadn't even been circumcised. His father was a Greek. He was fruit out of the church at Lystra. He did not fit Paul's qualification or Peter's qualification from Acts chapter 1. But right here, he's referred to as an apostle of Christ. The commentaries will tell you that Paul is using the royal we, that the pronouns in 1 Thessalonians chapter 1 and 2 are a literary device called the royal we, that Paul's speaking of himself in the plural. We could have asserted I don't buy it. I've read those arguments. They don't seem compelling to me. I think that Paul is recognizing apostolic authority in his co-workers. They are sent ones. That's what apostle means. In the 3rd century after Christ, Jerome is going to translate 1 Thessalonians into Latin. From Greek into Latin. The Vulgate becomes the Catholic standard, right? For 1,000 years. The English term missionary is the word that is derived from Jerome's Latin translation of the word apostle. Jerome read apostle in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 6, and he gives it the Latin equivalent of the word missionary. A sent one. Okay? Now, we haven't taken the time, we've alluded to it a few times, but here is one of several New Testament examples of sent ones, the term apostolos assigned to people who were clearly not witnesses to the resurrection. So we have a clear distinction, Acts 1, of the visible eyewitnesses, the 12, that is bound in the casting of lots in chapter 1 to the replacement of Judas. It is important we think of them as a closed group because in New Testament history, they're going to be assigned the authority or the authoritative apostolic attestation, the apostolic testimony concerning the canon, concerning the New Testament writings. These are the ones who saw Christ's resurrection, and it's important for the church that they vouch for the letters of the New Testament. And based on their apostolic attestation, the New Testament is closed. Joseph Smith doesn't make the cut, right? With the Book of Mormon. It matters that that's a closed group, but we are acknowledging right here that there is an ongoing sent one term, apostolos, the only word meaning sent one, used here in the Greek, that's applied to people beyond the 12. Timothy and Silas, Barnabas, Paul, being the 4 examples that we've run straight into so far. Okay? Now, I'm sure there's questions, but I have something else that I want to show you in Thessalonians, and we're going to finish. 1 Thessalonians chapter 1. We read down through 2:6, but how do we date the letter? How do we know when 1 Thessalonians was written? Go to chapter 2, verse 17. The pronouns continue, we, our, us, all the way through chapter 2, verse 17. But Adelphoi, brothers and sisters, when we were orphaned by being separated, when we were pushed out of Thessalonica, right, sent to Berea, When we were separated from you from a short time in person, not in thought, out of our intense longing, we made every effort to see you. Who's the we? Paul, Silas, and Timothy. For we wanted to come to you. Certainly, here's the first singular pronoun in the letter. Certainly, I, Paul, did again and again. Now look at this. But Satan blocked our way. Hold on for a second. Paul spends 3 Sabbaths with Silas and Timothy. Jason and other believers are persecuted, drug into the city court. They have to leave. They go to Berea. They wanted to visit over and over again. They felt as if they'd been orphaned from the Thessalonian church. Certainly, Paul wanted to go again and again, but Satan is on the scene. Wow. Verse 19, chapter 2. For what is our hope, our joy, our crown, and which will we glory in the presence of the Lord Jesus when he comes? Is it not you? Indeed, you are our joy and crown. Chapter 3, verse 1. So when we could stand it no longer, we, for the first time, Silas and Paul, we thought it best to be left by ourselves in Athens. We sent Timothy, who is our brother and co-worker. The word is synergos. You remember the word work, ergon, the work from Acts chapter 13 and 14? Synergos, the synergy comes from that word. The ones carrying on the work, just as Paul had. We sent Timothy, our brother and co-worker, in the work, the service, and spreading the gospel to strengthen and encourage you in your faith. So presumably after Berea, Acts tells us Paul went to Athens and gave instructions for Silas and Timothy to join him. Silas and Timothy did join him in Athens. How do we know? Because when they could stand it no longer, they thought it best to be left, Silas and Paul. They sent Timothy to see about their faith. Now let's pull a few pieces together here. A 3-week-old church faced that they had been orphaned from in Thessalonica, that had already been facing persecution. Jason and other believers roughed up. And hear this rightly quoted from chapter 2. It is Satan blocking the way. And when you can stand it no longer under those circumstances, send the teenager to see about their faith. That's the same Timothy, right? What is Timothy doing? He's a synergos. He's a co-worker. If you're not sure about his authority, go back to chapter 2, verse 6, and call him a sent one apostle. He's a New Testament writer. Paul, Silas, and Timothy, receiving inspiration from the Holy Spirit of God. When we could stand it no longer, we thought it best to send the guy who's been traveling around with us for the last 6 months to see about your faith, because Satan is there blocking the way. Look what it says next. Verse number 3. To see about your faith so that no one would be unsettled by the trials. What trials? The persecutions. For you know quite well that we were destined for them. In fact, when we were with you for 3 weeks, mind you, when we were with you, we kept telling you that you would be persecuted. Is persecution and suffering part of your beginning discipleship? It was in Paul's. He was there for 3 weeks, and when he was with them, he kept telling them, oh, you're going to get beat. This is not going to be good. There's going to be suffering. Look at the next verse. In fact, when we were with you, we kept telling you, verse 5, for this reason, when I could stand it no longer, I sent to find out about your faith. And the next phrase is underlined in my Bible. Paul says, I was afraid. Do you see it right there in the middle of verse 5? I was afraid that in some way the tempter may have tempted you and that our labors might have been in vain. What did Paul just say? I was worried that it was all for nothing, that the labor was in vain. I was afraid that you might have been tempted. So when I could stand it no longer, because of Satan, because of persecution, because of our sense of being orphaned from you, we sent the 6-month co-worker who's a teenager to see about and strengthen your faith. I'm going to just repeat it, and I know it's being recorded. If I report that to my missions organization as fidelity to the missionary task, there's going to be some serious follow-up questions about the integrity of my work. That is, if I wrote up a case study and said, this happened, then this happened, and we were pretty sure he's not omnipotent, we were pretty sure Satan was on the scene. He's not omnipresent, excuse me. He's not everywhere. Satan visited Macedonia and he's blocking the way. So we sent the guy we circumcised 6 months ago to check it out. Chapter 3, verse 6. But Timothy has just now come to us from you and brought good news about your faith and love. What's the report? To see about your faith. And when he comes back, faith, hope, and love. Faith, hope, and love. Faith, hope, and love. Evidence of the fruit of the Spirit. The Spirit of God's on the scene. The Spirit of God is more committed to the Thessalonians than Paul can be at that point. Faith, hope, and love expressed there among them. I don't know how you read this. Now it's fascinating. I told you we're going to stop. We're going to stop right there tonight. But Paul and Silas, Paul goes to Athens, Silas and Timothy join him. Evidently, Timothy was in good shape. Because when he could stand no longer, he sends him to Athens, or sends him from Athens back to Thessalonica. Chapter 3, verse 6, we don't know that they're still in Athens. They might have been in Corinth by this time, but Timothy comes back with news. And you know what Paul does? He writes the Thessalonians a letter. And he sends Timothy right back to him to deliver the letter. So Timothy, if you look at that map, however far Paul goes, Timothy's got the fresh legs. Come down there. We couldn't stand it. We sent. He comes back. Faith, hope, and love. We write a letter. We send it back again. And by the time we pick up next week, Paul's going to have shifted to Corinth, back in Acts, and Silas and Timothy are going to arrive from Macedonia, presumably having delivered the First Thessalonian letter. Okay?